So it's a beautiful morning here at Colle di Santa Lucia. It's this gorgeous landscape. We arrived here early this morning and we were driving through the fog the entire time. It's actually a blue sky day though. You think I'm lying to you, but I'm actually not. Clearly there's clouds everywhere, and often that happens when we're filming in the Alps. It's just part of that landscape here. It actually adds all that drama that we're looking for. But it is a blue sky day, and it's kind of an important theory to understand. So this isn't just a philosophical point. And I used to think it is. You know, I grew up in Long Island. We didn't have any scenery like this at all. So I used to think that was just kind of like a phrase that people say. Until I came to the Alps the first time. And then I realized it's actually quite literal what they're talking about. So what that really means is, as these clouds at any time could part, we do have a blue sky above that. And that sun is going to peek out, and what we're hoping for is that we're going to be able to take advantage of these kind of clearings, these pockets where the sun can kind of peek through and illuminate just part of the image. Now on crystal clear blue sky days when we don't have any clouds, we don't have any overcast, we don't have any elements that are kind of blocking that frame, we see everything. There's no mystery to it at all. But being able to take advantage of these clouds that are adding not just layers, but drama to that scene, all we need is just a few seconds where things open up. And in the mountains, it changes so fast. While I'm speaking, this is clearing up, and it's going to go back and forth, in and out. So all we need is just a few seconds to capitalize when it clears up, to capture that one frame where we have all that drama. It would be impossible to do this on a clear sky day. I know many people would wake up and say, you know what, I'm going right back to bed. These are the perfect conditions for photography. This is what we're looking for as landscape photographers. We tend to complain quite a bit about weather conditions, and it's overcast, and then it's too clear, and it's too rainy. This is actually ideal. All it requires is just a little bit of patience and waiting for that right moment. So what we're going to do now, we're going to stay in this location, and we're going to simply wait for that moment to reveal itself. So this is turning out exactly like we hoped, which is so nice when that happens. It doesn't always happen, but in this case, just a little bit of patience goes a long way. So this church now and this tiny little town, this little village that's perched right on this cliffside, is coming in and out of the clouds, creating so much drama in that scene. And this early morning light is adding even more drama. So if you're starting to understand light, what you can do is actually reverse engineer just by looking at the image where that sun is, where the light source is. So just by looking at my face right now, you should be able to see that that light is coming off this way, right? This side of my face should be a little bit more in shadow than this side over here. What that means is if I'm pointing into that scene, the light's kind of scraping right across the side of this image here, creating this drama. Anytime you have side light coming in from that side or light coming in from slightly behind, or even completely from behind, depending on that scene, it creates a lot more drama than just having light flooding in from that front. That's the last thing we want to do. So this worked out really well. So what else is working for us in this frame? We have the light in our favor, we have the clouds in our favor. Now the framing itself is obviously really important. So what's our focal point in this image? Clearly it's this church, that's why we came here. So that needs to be prominent in our frame. And at the moment, it's not necessarily large. It doesn't always have to be the largest part of that frame, but the way that people view your images, you have to first think about what's your focal point. And then you have to decide, how can I best take advantage of all the tools I have available to me to hit that person over the head? This is what this image is about. So the primary focus of this image is this church. The secondary focus is going to be the amazing scenery that it sits in, right? So we do have this, we don't want to frame it up in the middle, we want to keep it off to that left, but it is still a little bit small in that frame. So how can I make it larger? How can I make it more prominent? I can optically get closer, and two things are going to happen when I do that. When I switch to my 2x view by clicking on that 2, one, it's going to take up a much larger portion of that frame, and two, it's going to compress this church against the mountains, adding a little bit more drama to that scene as well. Now if you look now, we lost that tree to the left, and we also have this tall tree that's in the bottom right that's now just cut off. This composition isn't working for me. But what I notice is I do have this tree to my left that I can work with. That's kind of lit up with all these bright yellows because it's autumn here in the Dolomites. So what I'm going to do is going to walk a little bit closer, and I'm going to try and utilize this tree as both a layer and also a natural frame. Let me show you what I mean. And maybe just about here. Now if I just come down just a little bit here, I'm going to come down a little bit lower, and I kind of like this kind of element right in that bottom of that frame. And now we have this kind of almost circle that's filling from the top left down to that bottom of that frame, all the way through the middle of the right-hand side. So this is what we call a natural frame. When we don't have a really interesting grounding foreground element, like a boulder, like a log, like an interesting, beautiful flower in the scene, something to ground it. Having these trees, and this is especially nice when we're shooting in the fall, in the autumn season in many locations, where that foreground element, these trees have all this color, it actually makes for a beautiful natural framing and foreground composition. So now that we have this framed up, you'll see we have literally nothing framed up, just a white sky. And that's totally fine because we know, again, it's a blue sky day. We're just waiting for that to clear up, and when it does, it's going to be spectacular. All right, so this is what I'm talking about right now. Now I'm waiting for that pocket just to the right of that church. I'm gonna go ahead and take a photo, and I'm gonna watch this as it comes right behind that church, and you'll notice it's gonna separate it. It's almost the reverse of what we typically look for. Typically we try and get the brightest part of the image, that focal point, or right behind that focal point, or ideally that focal point itself, which is this church. But instead, what we're looking for is luminance contrast, light contrast. So if our focal point, our church, is bright white, we want something behind it that's dark, which is that mountain. And if everything else on the left and the right is still white, it's going to kind of point and give us an arrow, a reverse arrow. Typically we want like a brighter part that's pointing to the image. Here we have the reverse of that, but it's still working in our favor. Having that contrast behind that church is really going to kind of separate that out. And it's going to draw our eye right to where we want that viewer to look. Now again, just talking about composition, as we watch this kind of drama play out, look at where this hill terminates. I'm careful to keep it terminating right at the bottom right-hand side of that frame. If I come just a little bit lower, or I point down, you'll notice I have way too much foreground. And if I point up, I have way too much sky, and there's not enough detail in that sky to make it worth including. So keeping it right towards that middle of that frame and letting that valley terminate at the bottom right-hand corner of that frame, to me, really makes this composition work. So we're still waiting, but I feel like this is just gonna work out. All right, now it's just about to come into position. You see these two clouds kind of lining up over here, and that's the shot right there. That's the shot that we want. Perfect. So if you see, this worked out so well. We have this line kind of leading right to this church. It's a reverse of what we typically like. Typically we wait for this light to kind of point right into that scene. Here we have the reverse of that. It's actually a dark line reversed by those clouds, but what it's doing is it's continuing this kind of dynamic diagonal shape through the entire composition, from the very top right of that frame all the way through that left-hand side of that frame, and then again makes like a zigzag down into that right-hand side of that frame, continuing down that composition. So that actually worked out perfectly. I mean, if you look at this, this is ideal. Here we have exactly what we're looking for, all these elements combining into one shot that only happened for a split second. We have the clouds lining up in the right place, the light working in our favor coming from the right-hand side and side lighting it, and then these trees only happens at this time of year, giving us that important color and also that natural framing. So we have all these elements lining up perfectly for just that 1 second. That's exactly what we were hoping for. Now, one other image that I would really like to capture is we come out here during really late sunset, what we call the blue hour. That's after the sun sets on the horizon and the sky still has color. It turns from that warm golden orange color at sunset to this kind of cobalt blue color. The reason why that's so important is that's the time that the lights will come on in this little village, and especially on this church. And we're only gonna have a few minutes to work with this, but that will be ideal lighting conditions. So let's pack it in, let's go explore some more locations, and let's see what we can come up with.